Hello and welcome to the 27th episode of This Week in Mappercraft. Last week was June 28th to July 4th, so happy 4th of July. And we'll be covering the years of 2015, 2017, 2022, and 2025. As always, all information here can be found on the Mappercraft wiki, which is linked in the description along with the server itself. Let's get into the years. First up, in 2015, the server was running Earthworld 1, hosted by Monsoon Jr. In 2017, the server was running Earthworld 6, hosted by Xenodyne. In 2022, the server was running Earthworld Redux, hosted by Top. And finally, in 2025, last year, the server was running Brave New World Revisited, hosted by me, MintyMichael. Let's get into it. First up, we have 4 events from June 28th to July 4th, 2015, during the last days of Earthworld 1. On the 28th, Stravia was invaded and annexed by Vasco Praetoria. This was the last major competition for the Praetorian faction, and according to the quote, they now ruled the world. This unification led to another event on the 28th, when Praetoria launched the first Outer World expeditions. On some of the earlier worlds, there wasn't a world border, so if you went to the edge of the map, you could get to a vanilla-generated world outside of the sort of main map. This was called the Outer Worlds, and they are technically present on every map, although they were only accessed in a few. According to the quote, TL, FedEx, and Lola Stan launched expeditions, with TL and FedEx going past the North Pole and Lola Stan going down past Antarctica. Possibly related to these players generating new chunks. Also on the 28th, the server crashed many times, coming back each time, however. According to the quote, this was due to a heat wave at Monsoon Jr.'s physical location, although I suspect that the Outer World expeditions contributed to the crashing. Finally, for our last event, this week in 2015, on the 30th, the longest nether road yet was completed by FedEx. According to the quote, the length was over 2,000 blocks, and it connected the colonies in the Outer World that had been created by the expeditions earlier in the week. And that marks the end of This Week in 2015. Next up, we have 4 events from June 28th to July 4th, 2017 during Earthworld 6. First, on the 28th, the war in Russia kicked off between the loyalist Aragon forces and the rebellious Russians, led by Bonito Pib. Following the St. Petersburg crisis, a substantial independence movement had developed in Russia. In response to this, the Reichstag authorized Tomad to exile Bonito Pib from Russia and install Thundermaster 99 as the new leader. According to the quote, Pib rose up in full rebellion in response to this, attacking Aragon-controlled cities, including the Russian capital, St. Petersburg. Tomad sent military units into Russia to quell the rebellion, causing much damage to Russian cities. Ultimately, the conflict grinded down to guerrilla warfare, and Aragon decided to just give Russia independence. They still attempted to claim victory, though, as apparently, according to this, Aragon took no casualties while the Russian rebels took many. The conflict was overshadowed on the next day, the 29th, by the war in France, which began when a 4-way coalition between Aragon, Starim, the PAU, and the Kingdom of Maple was formed in order to subjugate France. However, after the Starmiglian army occupied Bordeaux, the Aragons disagreed with a proposed peace deal, which would have seen France annexed by Starim entirely. Wanting to avoid another border with Starim, the Aragons fought to preserve France's independence as a buffer state. Thus, when Starim officially declared war on France, Aragon special forces were sent in an unofficial capacity to assist Javassy, the French leader. This caused the PAU to back out of the coalition and declare neutrality to avoid escalating the conflict and getting involved in a major European war. Most of the fighting occurred in and around Bordeaux, with the Aragon special forces assaulting the city twice before being thrown back by a numerically superior Starmiglian force. Despite successfully occupying Breton and Bordeaux, the Starmiglian army was slowly worn down by repeated raids by the Aragons. Meanwhile, the PAU set up a neutral fortified area outside Bordeaux to observe. According to the quote, Starim eventually decided to sack the city of Bordeaux and repositioned their army. After failing to retake or protect the city, the Aragon special forces were called back to Aragon. This led to the capitulation of France shortly afterward, as Javassy was under impossible circumstances, and he surrendered at the PAU's neutral military base less than an hour after the Aragons left the region. It's unclear how the eventual peace treaty was written, but on the 1st of July, the Occitanian Reconstruction began, as Starim moved to repair their newly gained territory from France. According to the quote, the area was primarily in southern France. It appears that northern France remained independent for a time, although also on the 1st, France and their leader Javaisi officially rejoined Starum with all remaining French territory. According to the quote, the only areas that remained separate were Brittany, Calais, and Alsace, which went to other nations after the war ended, probably Aragon, although it's possible that the PAU or Kingdom of Maple grabbed something. But that marks the end of this very eventful week in 2017. Next up, we have two events from June 28th to July 4th, 2022 during Earthworld Redux. First, on the 20th, Bogsu began a diplomatic crisis with Cyprus. According to the quote, Bogsu accused Cyprus of collaborating with Lassity, a despised player among many different nations, and the two nations cut diplomatic ties accordingly. It's unclear if this led to the next event on July 4th when King Agnias I of Cyprus died unexpectedly. According to the quote, the king had some sort of premonition of his death, and after investigation, the cause of death was determined to be due to 20 gunshot wounds to the back of the head and was subsequently declared an unfortunate suicide. After much internal turmoil, Stanflash became the new king of the nation. But that marks the end for this week in 2022. Next up, we have a handful of events from June 28th to July 4th, 2025, last year during Brave New World Revisited. First, on the 28th, the End opened, allowing players to fight and defeat the Ender Dragon. According to the quote, Drello was the first player to kill the Ender Dragon, and Fulguratia was the first player to retrieve a dragon egg. Also on the 28th, the Armenian-Oprichnid War began after several days of insults and competing land claims between the two nations. Little Armenia was backed by the pirates of Pirates Cove in Jamaica, as well as most other states in the Tovengari, also known as the name for the region around IRL Los Angeles. Oprichnid was supported by the small nation of Coral Cove. According to the quote, the war was relatively inactive on the first day as the members of Oprichnid attempted to claim staff bias and get the entire war rolled back. I remember this, it was really annoying, and it obviously didn't work. Eventually, both Oprichnid and Coral Cove lost and were destroyed. Their former territory was split between Armenia and the nearby nation of Or. Following that, on the next day, June 29th, the Yalchawa-Sarenmark War kicked off. This was a mildly complex conflict. Following Sarenmark's defeat of Ohlone, they had become the premier power on the west coast. Several nations banded together into the nations of Lachawa and Surajinin, and then proceeded to invade Sarenmark to limit its power. Facing this combined force, the Earl of Sarenmark, Carrot is a god, quickly capitulated and a peace treaty was agreed upon. The stipulations of the Treaty of Surinen required that the nation of Sarenmark be disbanded and that the settlement of Sarenmark remain an independent settlement indefinitely. According to the quote, this immediately took place, along with the disbandment of Surajinin into independent city-states. Carrot was allowed to retain control of the city of Sarenmark, but Victoria, the city settlement of Victoria, was made independent, and all signatories agreed to the free flow of water between the rivers of the region. Following these developments, on the 30th of June, the Sarenkra Homestead Act was passed by the Earl, which according to the quote would pay players 2 diamond blocks to build or settle in the city. This act greatly energized the development of the city of Sarenmark, making up for the limited damages and loss of international prestige due to the previous day's Lachawa War. But that marks the end of this week in 2025, and this marks the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and check out the server at the link in the description. As always, if you have any additional information about any of these events, leave a comment down below or go ahead and add it to the Mappercraft wiki. See you next week for July 5th to the 11th.